Hello and welcome to Expose Yourself, a storytelling podcast by Thunder Lizard Collective. I'm your host, Christian. Expose Yourself is a podcast about stories and storytelling. Every week we'll bring on a new guest to come in and tell their story, some true, some fabricated. This week's episode will have an excerpt from the ThunderCast, the other podcast by Thunder Lizard Collective. In this story, me, your host, I will tell you a story about how I had a pulmonary embolism, something short and sweet that'll kind of get you in the groove for what this episode is all about, or this podcast is all about. And then on Monday, we'll have a full episode with my friend Totoro Andre. Hope you enjoy the show. So you might hear me like coughing or like wheezing a little bit, and that's because I had a pulmonary embolism. So for those of you at home that don't know what that means, no, it is not a heart attack, but it's a heart attack in your lungs. So I had a blood clot in my lung, a very small blood clot, but enough to do some pretty fucked up damage to my body. So on February 17th, I went to go play bingo with my parents. And I was having a lot of trouble breathing, like, you know when you run too much and then your lungs burn? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's what was going on. So every time I'd breathe, also part of why I'm telling people this is because if I can at least get somebody who maybe is having these signs or whatever, and they happen to be listening to this for some reason, that you go to the fucking hospital. So anyway, having a hard time breathing, my lungs it was just kind of sore and burning. And then I was like, I'm just getting sick because I had done a show a couple days prior with Cinemusic, and everybody got sick. So I was like, oh, okay, well, you know, it's just a consequence of being in a big room full of people and shaking hands and kissing babies, right? And so I thought I was sick. So the next day, I went to work, and I felt like a big bag of shit. And then I went out for my partner's brother's birthday, and I had a couple drinks, and I was like, oh no, I feel super fucked up right now. Like, I've only had like 2 beers. I don't understand why I feel so gooned. And then I went home and I passed out right away, woke up next morning, stayed home from work, wasn't feeling well. Same sort of things, but things were getting worse. And then Thursday, and Thursday was the 20th, and I was like, again, not feeling super great, so I stayed home from work, worked from home, I should say, and at about 5 p.m. on Thursday, February 20th, I had some of the worst chest pains of my whole life. Very, very awful. They were probably like a 7 out of 10, like really bad, and they lasted for about 45 minutes. It was right over my left chest, so, you know, over my heart, and my hands started going numb, and I was like, I'm having a fucking heart attack. 27 years old, I'm having a fucking heart attack. So I called my partner, and then I was like, we got to go to the hospital. So I went to the hospital. It was about 7:30 by the time we got there. And I didn't get in until about 9:30, so about 2 hours later, because that's how medical stuff works in Canada.
Unless you're super rich.
Nope, that's how it works in Canada. Anyway, so you're thinking about the States. It's just like in the States. You get the money, they'll let you in right away. But anyway, so I got in the hospital. They took my blood, checked my blood, and they were like, so everything came back pretty good, except for your blood clotting one. And she's like, the doctor said it's inconclusive, and I was like, right on, cool.
No, Christian.
and she's like,
bad.
No, that's very bad. You got to go get an X-ray. So I got an X-ray done. X-ray was inconclusive as well. There's nothing really there. And then so she is about 3 a.m. She comes back and she says, you can wait here for 6 hours, or you can go home, sleep, come back, and then we'll do this thing called a VQ scan. And a VQ scan is like a CAT scan or an MRI. And what they do is there's these giant X-ray pads that are big squares, and they go around your body. And like it takes about 30 to 40 minutes, and it's like an MRI, so you got to sit perfectly still, and it just like blast you with radiation. It was fucking crazy. You can't feel it, but it was fucking crazy.
Christian is now a gamma mutant.
Yeah, so I had to breathe in this like nuclear air and shit, so to illuminate my lungs, and then they injected me with this nuclear waste that illuminated my blood, and I was like, is this going to give me superpowers? And she was like, no. And I was like, how often do you hear that joke? And she's like, literally every fucking day. And so I went back to the ER after the scan was done, and they pulled me in. And the doctor sits me down, and he kind of just has this notepad in front of him, and he's like, you had pulmonary embolism. And I was like, cool. He's like, not cool. Very not cool. If you'd have waited like maybe 4 more days, you probably would have fucking died. So you're welcome, internet. I went to the hospital, and I did not die.
But he also sadly didn't become a superhero.
Nah, but my dick got bigger, so.
I mean, they did turn him into a cyborg, though, in some way.
Yeah. No. That cyborg thing, that's a diabetes thing. I'm super fucked up, everybody.
Yeah,
I'm super fucked. I got really bad health problems.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, he's a cyborg. Not as cool as, like, say, like, Black Superman or anybody, but, like, he is kind of a cyborg.
Yeah, I'm not like Idris Elba. I'm actually the opposite. I am kryptonite. I'm walking kryptonite. Anyway, so that's what happened. So that's why we had to delay the episode for a couple weeks. So by the time you're listening to this, it would have been 4 weeks ago that I had this embolism. Thank you for listening to this episode of Expose Yourself, a storytelling podcast by Thunder Lizard Collective. I've been your host, Christian. If you like what you heard, please give us 5 stars on iTunes, give us a follow on Spotify, and anywhere else that you listen to podcasts. You can also follow us on social media by searching Thunder Lizard Collective on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and Thunder Lizard OG on Twitter. You can use those to see when new episodes of the ThunderCast, Thunder and Dragons, and Expose Yourself are coming out. Again, thank you for listening to this episode. We hope you come back soon. Hello and welcome to Expose Yourself, a storytelling podcast by Thunder Lizard Collective. I'm your host, Christian. Welcome to our first official episode with my friend, Totoro Andre, whatever name you want to use, I'm sure he'd be okay with it. On this episode, we go into a few music festivals that Andre has been a part of, and many that have shaped how he sees himself and the world. Toto is a very interesting man who exists in many forms and wears many hats, both figuratively and literally. I've known him for a number of years, and many of his stories still surprise me. I hope you enjoy the episode.
Octopus. One night he was gazing out about the water to the full moon that danced. Octopus, he looked up out the water and dreamed he could fly. Man on a hill above the sea knows not what stops the song just for a second in the light of that moon. He sees an octopus rising out the water, and it floats in the air like another ocean, and it rolls up, 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 up. It disappeared in the cloud.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the first, not even back. Welcome to the first episode of Expose Yourself to Christian. I have a good friend of mine, somebody I've known for about 6 years now, I think. Toto. I have always.
If you know me and it comes out as Andre, that's cool. Like I was walking here today, actually, thinking about that about the name thing, and I like all my names because of the people who say them.
Yeah, rolls off the tongue for different people,
yeah,
right?
And
yeah,
it's the people I love, and the name sounds good coming out of people that you care about.
Yeah, cool. All right, well, you're known pretty commonly as Toto. That's the name that we were before we started this episode here. We were talking about that, but I think if, like you said, it's cool if I call you Andre. Then that's all right. I'll use that. So, Expose Yourself is a show all about entertaining and embarrassing stories, oftentimes humorous, maybe sometimes tragic. Who knows what's going to come up? But I brought you on as my first guest because I know you've lived quite the life.
And it has been tricky figuring out what stories. I didn't know about the embarrassing part, so I kind of went to the inspiring part.
That's cool. Yeah, so that was the original idea was embarrassing stories, but I think I'm just going to turn it into a storytelling podcast. I think that works a little bit better. But yeah, so if you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, what you're all about, if you can simplify it to the best of your ability. Because I know you're a wordsmith yourself.
I'm a
right?
wordsmith. I am a master poet. I have the paper to prove it. That's
Yeah.
what I did my
You've written a
graduate
number
school.
of books.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think you're on 12 or something. Like that,
I tried to do a book a month for a year.
Yeah.
And I came close.
And if people want to find those books, they can find them on Amazon.
Amazon under Zip Toto.
Toto.
Zip with 2 P's.
2 P's.
Yeah.
I was reading Beef.
Nice.
Which I believe is one of your first ones.
Mm-hmm.
I
consider it my first novel.
Your first novel, yeah. And it's kind of a how would I explain it? It's a biography of sorts, but also kind of a fictional tale at the same time, like a Big Fish story, right?
Yeah. And it's only just beginning.
Yeah, there's more to the saga.
There's more. That's the first of 4 books.
Mm-hmm.
It goes beef, ground beef, of which is done, ginger beef, and boof.
Boof.
And boof.
B-O-O? B-O?
B-O-E-U-F.
Nice. Okay.
Boof.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, so you're a poet, you're a writer, you're a dancer.
I'm a dancer. I do
soccer
dance
player.
I love teaching community soccer. I'm a big. We're changing in a positive direction, coming back to community, village, and soccer is actually a really clever, neat way in which to teach and experience that change, because we're all used to the soccer that we know, and you got cleats and you're running fast and competition and I lost and da 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 da. But we play without cleats, and it changes the whole game. We're not here to tear up Mama Earth, so the ball will always move faster than you can run. So you kind of take that speed movement element. When you take out the cleats, it's less dangerous. More people can play, and yeah, it moves faster than you can run. And it's the ultimate game of sharing, where you're constantly giving and receiving. And when I've got to introduce that, I often do it with the Sundance as well. To teach that community in a simple step and to make people comfortable, because it's just a ball and your feet have been at the bottom of your legs all your life, and just demystifying it, and then it just becomes, wow, you just run around kicking the ball with your friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you remember that.
The competition kind of gets lifted away.
It lifted. You have the story. The scoring creates the story and creates the moments. But everyone, since I've been playing it and teaching it, not a single person has been sad to lose.
Right.
Everyone's just happy
because they just had a good time.
Yeah, had a good time. And you can build those bonds. And it's in the way that we played soccer, and this other kind of version is kind of the shift that I hope we make as a society toward that collaboration and that celebration. And sport wasn't about, originally the intention was not about who was the best. It was a way in which two different groups could share what they learned over the year.
Yeah.
It's how they both got better.
Yeah, right on. Cool. Thanks for sharing that. So among those things that you do, like we said earlier, you are a storyteller. I've heard a lot of stories from you. I've heard a lot of stories about you. You've been an enigma in a lot of people's lives, for sure. I've known a lot of people who are not shocked, but it's just like when I bring you up or your name comes up in conversation or something, I'm astounded by the amount of people that know you, and the amount of people that You're a very friendly and cheerful guy, so I'm glad to have you here as the first guest. So
thank you. Good to be here.
Let's jump into a story.
Yeah. All right. I should tell my first Motion Notion story.
Oh yeah, right on. Yeah, you go to a lot of festivals.
I go to a lot of festivals. Before I went to festivals, actually, the first in that experience would have been the International Indigenous Leadership Gathering in Little Wet, BC. It was 10 days. It was the first time I ever did a sweat. Ended up doing like 3.5. It was incredible. It was timeless. The energy, I came halfway through, but the energy at the end of that 10-day gathering, food was taken care of. It's a beautiful thing that happens when people aren't worried about food, right? The food was there.
Yeah.
They were there. Didn't have to have any worries. They could be themselves.
Right.
And it's after that, it was 4 days. And then I went to Sundances and Medicine gatherings, also 4 days. And then I went to, Inshallah was my first transformative festival. Frog Fest was my second.
Yeah. Frog Fest is great.
It's great. Yeah. It is great. And I was glad to have gone to the Indigenous gatherings first because I recognized the same things happening. I just applied to Boom, and there was a neat line in there in that we remembered what we forgot. Even, like this gathering thing is something we've been doing for aeons, and it's important, and it's huge to the community and that space. The land calls us there. But even when we didn't know that's what we were doing, these festivals pop up in these beautiful places. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
These special sacred time outside of the regular world to just have a different experience and get in touch with a lot.
Yeah.
So I dig them. I've got to go to a lot. I've been blessed. I think my record in a year was 14 or 15.
That's outstanding. That's a lot. Yeah. You're like a band at this point.
Yeah.
Just cruising
around.
around.
Even when I try not to go, I end up going to at least 8 or 9. It just kind of happens. And I'm able to do that because most of them I'm either doing workshops or I'm volunteering. I'm part of it somehow. I've been blessed as I shift. I'm moving more, even deeper into the organizing side of those things, and it feels good.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So what's the story?
Oh, the story. Yeah. First Motion Notion.
First Motion Notion.
First Motion Notion was 2013. So it was a year after my first. 2012 was my first foray into festivals. Inshallah, and then Frog Fest, and then Shambhala. And I quickly mentioned Shambhala because at the same time I was going to Shambhala. Oh, it's a really good story. It's a Sundance. The Sundance that I had attended was happening at the same time. It was that week, and I didn't know. I heard about Shambhala for a long time. Never been to Shambhala. I kind of wanted to go to Shambhala. Kind of want to even just get to the Sundance, but I don't have any money and nothing. It's Wednesday.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm going anywhere. My buddy calls me up and he's like, "Hey, you going to Shambhala?" And I'm like, "No, man, I got no float." He's like, "No, do you want to go to Shambhala?" And I was like, what? I'm leaving in an hour. Or no, I'm leaving tonight. I'll get you a ticket. I got food. I got thing. You'll be taken care of. But, you got to decide quick. He gave me an hour. And I went.
The most difficult hour of your life. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Sorry, the easiest hour. Yeah.
And I went and realized I didn't have the ticket yet. And even that story, it's magical. The thing breaks down. It is an epic story. Should I just tell that one?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, let's do the Shambhala story, everybody.
Shambhala craziness. So we're going. He has this dream. He has this wagon. His dream's gonna be a Shambhala with his motorhome. Beautiful fella, Jay, Robert Paulson. And he brought me and Bracken, and that's when Bracken and I first met. And he's taking us both there. We're driving. It's going great, and then it breaks down.
The motorhome.
The motorhome breaks down. It breaks down so much we have to tow it back to the nearest city. Everything's closed. He's desperate to fix it. It's not gonna fix it. We're like, we're not going to Shambhala. Bracken and I kind of take it easy. Next day, we help him let go of, that it has to be that wagon. It was not going to get fixed. It was, even he had to let go if we were going to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually he did. And, Bracken's mom picked us up. We went back to Calgary. He rented a Jeep. Then we went. So we're on our way. I realized I don't have my ID. I'm one to lose things. And so at this time, I had recently lost my ID. Going to Shambhala with no ID. And I'm like, you know what? It's okay. Going in the right direction. If I don't make it, I can go. I'll just hitchhike to the Sundance. I'm on my way that far. And it's a powerful, beautiful thing. And I haven't actually yet been back since. And we get there. Oh, I still don't have a ticket, by the way.
Important part of the story. Yeah.
He got one for Brack on the road, and we still don't get it. And then finally he gets one and said, "We'll call." Weird thing. Shambhala has crazy lines, crazy long lines. People in line for forever.
Yeah. For anybody at home who's listening who doesn't know what Shambhala is an electronic music festival that happens in British Columbia. Right, British Columbia. Yeah, it's not far.
Near Nelson.
Right. Yes. So right in the green elbow, as it were, of British Columbia, and it's a 4-day festival, I believe, 4 or 5 day. Well, it's kind of
grown.
Yeah,
it's slowly etching up longer. A big sentiment, and a lot of people they go to the festival. You're just starting to connect.
Yeah,
I do have a dream of a 10-day one called the Muppet Show.
Is that a festival, or is that
a festival to be? Hopefully that it's a collaboration between Calgary-based festivals and Alberta-based festivals for a 10-day thing. That the Muppet Show, as in French show, both for copyright and to make it a burn, to get the freezer burners, to get all these different communities who are moving in the same direction to connect outside of the city. To connect in something they're familiar with but not familiar with.
Right.
There's so much actual emotional connection work we've done in the festivals that we have. I have a 10-day to really connect, really attend workshops, live music, the Muppet Show, and being a burn, and it would have to be kind of burn style as well.
Yeah.
That's something I'm working on. I'm in the backgrounds right now. I'm on the Frog Fest board.
Yeah.
I'm a parking lead for Freezer Burn. Inshallah, they like the idea. It might happen next summer.
Cool. Keep your eyes peeled, everybody.
Keep your eyes peeled.
Anyway, so tickets at will call.
Tickets at will call. Keep me on track. Tickets on will call. We get in there and so Shambhala, right. Shambhala has crazy lines. I didn't know this my first time. Since going back a few times, I don't go to that one too often. they have crazy lines.
Yeah.
They're known for, and this is Friday night. We're getting in Friday
And
night.
they search like everybody's car, right? Like,
Not so much that. It's just a long process.
oh, okay,
It's
yeah,
a long process.
yeah, because there's so many people going in
Yeah.
there. It's on a private property, so
Yeah.
yeah,
And it's actually, I've learned one of the most enjoyable things because you meet people in the line. And
Yeah.
people are ready. But this is Friday night. We had left Wednesday night, mind you. So this whole thing, we were supposed to get there early, and it's taking us longer. We get there Friday night. But that night, what I didn't know then, we just drove right up pretty much, right? Just cruised on into where the gate was. I got out of the car to go to will call with him to get my ticket. And I waited there, and he went back. And then when I got back to the car, they'd already done the ID checks.
oh yeah,
And like
right
the ID
on.
thing,
yeah,
like Shambhala, you need your ID. You just do. And yeah, just because that little slip, I got to go.
right on. So you just got back in the car
Got back in the car
and zipped right in.
and zipped right in.
That's wild.
We zipped right in. We get there. They're like, okay, we go check it. It's night. I've never been to Shambhala, and they go, and I have no idea. I just got like, trying to remember even what I had that first time. It wasn't much.
Like clothes on your back, pretty much, eh?
I had I think a onesie and some stuff underneath, and we go. It's a great night. It's fantastic. My favorite part is when the sun comes up because then there's room to dance.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. I'm just coasting, haven't slept yet, just enjoying. I go back to where the car was, and it's not there. No car. I don't know where. And like Shambhala parking is another crazy thing. But like I was like the car, and I remember looking around. I don't know anybody. I'm like, I don't have any money. I don't need food. I don't know what this guy is.
Your beard is scratching against the mic. Sorry, everybody. Yeah.
Get right into it.
Anyway, car's gone.
Car's gone. And I'm like, okay. I only got the clothes in my bag, So I go back and I do some dancing, enjoy it. I eventually do fall asleep. Saturday night, I managed to find my buddy Sky. They had this beautiful dome, and they had these people napping in there. So I got a nice little rest there. And I'm going around. I'm shy. I don't really want to ask, and I get a little water, a little food here and there. I'm feeling tired, and I remember just like this is like a Sunday. I still haven't seen him. I don't know where he's gone. He had moved the car. Shambhala, though, many people have the story where you don't see the person you come with until the day you leave.
Yeah.
Shambhala will strip your what it's best at. Sorry, with all the different festivals, what it is best at is stripping your expectations. If you have any at all, you'll have a terrible time.
Yeah.
And that's how it strips it. It's like, and my moment, actually before it, I might be mixing Shambhalas. I had a moment in the water where I was like, okay, just let go.
No.
But this one, I was up against the fence, just feeling kind of sore. I didn't know what was going on, but I was like remembering, at this very moment, my Sundance brothers, they're dancing. They dance for 4 days, without food, without water, from sun up to sundown. There's drumming. They smoke the pipe. It's powerful. It's a powerful thing to be a part of, to see and to witness. And I was just there to witness and support. And there's so many teachings in the Sundance. And why I also, when I teach soccer, I use it to really express the deep community that it is. But anyway, here they were doing that. It's not a really complicated dance because they got to do that in the sun. And you're actually not supposed to be able to go 3 days without food or water, but they do it for 4, and on the 4th day is when they pierce to the tree, or they give the offering of flesh.
Like literally tear off a piece of their own
Oh
flesh,
yeah,
right?
because it's a beautiful teaching around it. Because they're dancing for prayers, for healing, for vision. They dance around a tree that the community has got, that they have from wherever they have to get it. They go as a community, and they go together. When they cut it down, it must not touch the ground to honor it. And with lots of hands, you can do that.
Yeah.
And they carry it all the way back. And all the prayers, and they dance. And the teaching, though, is all this, everything, it belongs to mama. It's on loan. We're helping tenant. We share it, but it all belongs to mama. Nothing actually belongs to you. You can't actually offer anything because it's not yours to offer. The only thing you're given is a body.
Right.
So that little piece of flesh is that's what you could offer. So they do.
That's wild. Very beautiful.
Very beautiful. And that's just even a tip of the iceberg of the community and teachings of it. But so here I'm sitting, I'm like, okay, they're doing that. And when I dance pretty hard.
Yeah, I've seen it, yeah.
And that first one too, I had some pretty beautiful dances. Yeah. Wow. 2012 was when I first did acid.
Oh yeah, was that at that show?
At Frog Fest, actually, was the first
Frog
time.
Fest, which is a couple of months before. Yeah.
I actually emceed
while doing it. Hey, okay, well that's a story. That's another story. Yeah,
but I was sitting there, and so I did this big dance in my heart. I'm like, I'll just. Oh yeah, the thought came just a little bit after I had this beautiful conversation up against the fence with the three people. I remember one of them had a book drawing, and we just started talking, and it was a good talk. And then they gave me a tab of acid.
Yeah,
right. All my pains go away.
So at this point, this is like your second time doing acid.
Yeah,
yeah. At Shambhala.
At Shambhala.
2012. Man.
And remembering, I'm like, they're doing that. I can go with a little food and a little water and a little bit of drugs, and I'll dance hard.
Yeah.
I will dance hard.
Yeah.
And I did, and it was beautiful. And dancing on the beach to Lioness in this beautiful. A lot of the festivals offer these little tweaks to my dancing. One of the one I really got into was slow motion.
Mm-hmm.
Like really in slow motion that looked like it was slow, like it looked like it was a fast action but going slow. And I remember dancing with a teddy bear that had dreadlocks, and I swear his hair was even just moving in slow motion.
Nice. Yeah. That's not Dr. Bob.
That's not Dr. Bob.
Yeah.
Dr. Bob, although the last time Dr. Bob was heard of was at a Shambhala I didn't make it to. What I heard was he's this Yeti. He's beautiful. He's probably my most wise storyteller.
I love Dr. Bob.
Yeah.
You were almost never without that guy.
I know.
For those the physical Dr. Bob was a plush toy that Andre would bring around with him to tell stories and engage people through the movements of the creature.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, yeah, Dr. Bob is also an enigma, and you had lost him at one point.
Oh, even that Motion Notion.
Yeah.
Actually, he was at that. Whoa.
Are we telling like 5 different stories
No,
at once?
they're colliding back to the first Motion Notion.
Oh, right on. Okay, cool.
But I think actually it might have been the second.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I thought of the Shambhala story when I was going to tell the Motion Notion story, the first Motion Notion, was that Motion Notion became for me my unofficial official Sundance.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I was just like super dedicated to be there, to be present. I discovered it had a lot to do with community, cleaning up the dance floor, being there, and just one of my tricks of the trade of how I do it is overnight. If you stay up till the sun, that's one thing, and that's recharging. But I found if you just clean up the camp, you clean up people's sites, you tidy it up, make it look good, it is recharging.
Yeah. Yeah, right on. Yeah, you got to give back a little bit, right?
Yeah,
you can
and
get
so
some out
I
of it.
learned a lot about in the process of this. So I did tweaks to it, but a lot of the same lessons that I could procure and that were gifted really to me to find that way in that dance and Motion Notion. They even have that first main stage had a pole to dance around, and there was a lot
Like
to
a
it.
maypole or something like that?
It had a center pole in the dance floor, and for me that is the kind of the echo to that tree. that stood in the center. You had
Right.
to dance floor around. Yeah.
So anyway, we were talking about Shambhala.
we
And then
talked Shambhala.
we went into Motion
we went into
Notion,
Motion
Dr. Bob.
Notion. Dr.
So
Bob.
we were talking about slow mo dancing on acid at
That's right.
at Shambhala
That's
2012.
And yeah, I did eventually run into my buddy, and it all worked out. You know, yeah.
Got
so
back in the
much.
Jeep, came back home, eh?
Got back in the Jeep, came back home. This is not the first time that I actually lost my driver again.
Yeah.
The second time was even more emotional because I did know where the car was, and every time I go there, it was locked, and it was a long walk to get there. And this one particular time, I was going through a lot. Like, so these festivals, you know, I remember talking to Amber Lynn at the end of a Shambhala, and like, yeah, some party, because it's not a party. It's deep, and it's a space that emotion can move, but it can catch you. And it caught me in that parking lot, and it was locked, and I was stuck in. But this time I had this zebra onesie.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
at the time I kind of exchanged a lot of costumes. I learned to costume change. And that's another trick. You know, it's kind of like having a shower. If you just change your clothes, you feel great.
Yeah. That one level of cleanliness, right? That one level of hygiene.
You know, bam, and you feel brand new. But this time, I stuck the whole weekend again with this same outfit. But I really got to know that zebra onesie.
Yeah. Do you still have it?
No.
Yeah.
I worked that one through its paces.
Yeah. Yeah.
But wow, danced a pumpkin in that onesie, and that was captured by it's two ladies. They do a kind of media blog thing. I'm forgetting everybody's name. But yeah, in their article, it was the dance that won me Shambhala.
Oh, yeah. So probably somebody can Google that. Hey,
Yeah.
the dance that won Shambhala. They'll probably be able to find it.
But that one, it was a bit like, so I was going through a lot of emotion. I remember talking to Rongo, and like, man, I'm gonna break down and cry. I'm like, just going through so much. I don't know when or where or how. And it was on that dance floor. Oh my God, it felt great.
In the midst of your dancing, hey?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And because I had that onesie with a hood, I could be on that ground and kind of like hide myself, or I think I hid myself enough. But yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome. I danced the whole set.
Yeah. So that's the Shambhala story, eh?
That was the impromptu Shambhala story. I realized there was
Impromptu
more,
Shambhala
and the point of it was the why Motion Notion, and why that first Motion Notion, and that. But I'm realizing it has stories within stories.
Yeah, the layers of
Layers.
layers
That
of
one
a
has a
festival.
sword in it and a lady in the lake.
Oh yeah. Man, you could go on for hours like that. Eh? Yeah. Cool. I really appreciate you telling us that story.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't tell you that story.
True.
I told you a different story.
True. Yeah.
Are we doing a couple stories?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because I can now tell you that story.
All right. We're gonna take a quick little break here, and then we'll come back for the next story. Thank you for listening to this episode of Expose Yourself, a storytelling podcast by Thunder Lizard Collective. I've been your host, Christian. If you like what you heard, please give us 5 stars on iTunes, give us a follow on Spotify, and anywhere else that you listen to podcasts. You can also follow us on social media by searching Thunder Lizard Collective on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and Thunder Lizard OG on Twitter. You can use those to see when new episodes of the ThunderCast, Thunder and Dragons, and Expose Yourself are coming out. Again, thank you for listening to this episode, and we hope you come back soon. Hello and welcome to Expose Yourself, a storytelling podcast by Thunder Lizard Collective. I'm your host, Christian. Today's episode, we have part 2 of my conversation with Totoro Andre, a man who, as I said in the last episode, is quite an enigma in many ways, and he exists in many spaces all at the same time, as a wizard would in a way. Andre is a filmmaker, a poet, a soccer professional, a mover, and a shaker. And like I said before, he's a man of many, many hats and also many capes. Andre and I have known each other for a number of years, and this story is also one that I have heard before, but still does not cease to surprise me. I hope that you enjoy this conversation between me and Andre.
Just out of reach, what pebble skips the times cross the way. Julie looks today. Clouds scraping the sky. Shade shadows. Oh, I'm coming by. Those in the sand.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Expose Yourself to Christian. I'm here with a good friend, Andre Toto. You most likely just heard the Motion Notion Shambhala
Prelude.
Yes. So now we're gonna go into
First Motion Notion.
the first Motion Notion.
First Motion Notion. The first This is 2013. You know, I had that 2012 year, and now it's 2013. You know, Frog Fest, beautiful. I had heard about Motion Notion. I think I had actually filmed the very first one that was in an arena. See, back I had a little period where I made these short films.
Yeah.
1999 or whatever.
Yeah, Salty Dog Production
Salty
Company.
Dog Production Company, that's right.
And then
Puffy Room Productions.
Puffy Room Productions. You can find a lot of those on Andre's upcoming website.
Yeah, ziptoto.ca.
Ziptoto.ca. There's also a few of them up on the Thunder Lizard Collective YouTube channel.
Actually,
so
they're all on there.
I believe all of them are up there.
There might be one missing.
I think so, yeah.
There's something. That's cool.
Yeah.
It's nostalgic.
Yeah.
But I had this beautiful Canon XL1. And I dreams of filmmaking. That's a big one in my path. It's actually what brought me back to writing stories and storytelling. Was to try and get into film school. And I made a bunch of films, and I had this amazing camera, and I shot these amazing rave videos. Again, when you're doing things for the first time, sometimes you just don't know what you're doing, and then look back and like, holy shit, fuck.
Yeah,
it was good. And this camera was something special because it captured the sound. I could walk around, and you know, because I have that groove, I would find a way to move with the camera, with the music, and all my little in-camera effects and filters, and playing, and just beautiful shots. But the music was captured perfectly. And so when people would watch it, they could just watch it, and they would just watch it. And looking back, like, it didn't even need to be edited. It was just this beautiful flow that people dipped in and out of, and people watched it all over. And eventually, some of those tapes got lost. Eventually, sadly, I had the chunk that I did have, like 7 or 8 hours, good chunk. I was in media, and someone had put my tapes near speakers.
And the electrical interference?
Yeah. It jigged all the footage.
Oh, bummer.
And I was like, And then, and I love making those things and moving with music and kind of filmmaking. And looking back, wow, yeah, people would just sit and watch it. What a huge compliment. And, they were beautiful. I really knew that camera well and moved it well.
Where would you screen these? And where did you show them?
People would just have them playing in their houses because the tapes would be over.
Oh,
and
yeah.
They played on the camera, and ended up lending the camera out. And a lot of people watched a bunch of those videos. And then that camera got broke.
Bummer.
And then I had to sell it to make the payments. And that kind of ended that. And that was a moment. And I haven't really even got to see those videos since a long time. So there's this opportunity, Motion Notion. I've heard about it. And no chance to go. I'm still, still a noob. Still just, okay, what are these things? And Catalyst, Jake, not Jake. Am I forgetting Catalyst? James Catalyst.
Catalyst.
I actually had known him back in university days. And we'd gone to a couple parties and stuff. And he hired me to edit, to film Motion Notion.
Yeah. And what year is this, sorry?
2013.
2013. Okay.
2013. And part of me is like, oh, this kind of redemptive feeling. I get to make that rave video I always wanted to make.
Yeah.
But I didn't have a camera. But Mark Vandergraaf,
yeah, friend of ours, yeah,
had these GoPros.
Yep.
So it's different because I wouldn't be able to do all the things and the zooms and the things that I did with this camera, the other camera, and it probably didn't capture the sound the same. But I'm gonna go, and I'm originally gonna go with Mark, but then Mark couldn't make it, so it's just me. I do call this story the Holy Flail.
The Holy Flail.
The Holy Flail. So I go in there. Fi says, I should shoot on slower speed because it'll enrich it. But what I don't realize is that I'm still moving with the music, so it's now going to be out of sync.
Yeah.
That footage I still haven't seen. I haven't seen that footage.
Yeah.
When I was going there, I heard other people were filming, and I said, okay, I'm not going to capture all what other people are. I'm going to, explore the advantage of this GoPro. And I told James that, and that I'd also take this chance to film some of my own stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Just while I'm there. I'd actually filmed 3 really beautiful dances. One was in the water.
Of you?
Of me.
Yeah.
I just set it up and then I danced in this water thing. And then the other one was dancing with this rainbow colored sheet. My friend, I think it was Vanessa, dyed it. And I was dancing with that. I think there's something else. I can't quite remember. But I remember, some really beautiful artful things. And what I struck to capture was the daytime moments. So when the people did have the space to dance, I wasn't going for all the money shots. But that's what James wanted was
the
money shots. Because it's for a
the
promo.
Nighttime, but I'm flashing lights.
I'm like all about the art of it. And like this GoPro is neat because it is a GoPro, but that means I can do funky little things and sneak it down around the ground.
Yeah, and so discreet.
Yeah, so discreet. Still haven't watched it.
Where does it exist? Does he have all the footage?
Mark has it.
Oh, okay.
It's on his computer.
Right on.
I came close. I lived with him, and I still didn't watch it. James watched it, hated it. It's not anything like an empty dance flute. Like, what is this? And there's even like one where I throw the camera up high, so I'm trying to catch a high shot.
Mm-hmm.
Like I freeze it later, but it's the camera spinning up and it's spinning down, but then it's also in slow motion. And so, like, it was really crazy to watch, probably.
Yeah, real trippy, yeah. Probably a little nauseating.
And so he was like, no, he was nice, though, because, he did pay for me to be there. And then he's just like, give me the cash back, but you don't have to pay for your ticket.
Right.
And I did Holy Flip because I did acid. And I was like, it's times when you do acid, you can't work digital things.
No, yeah. Your hands can't
it just
comprehend
can't,
it.
and
Yeah.
so that it does. And I experienced the Holyfield to thankfully not have done a great job with the video because maybe I just end up doing rave videos
And concert footage and all that stuff.
And
yeah.
what I learned that thing was that I am not here to film. I am here to dance
and participate. Be a part of that. Yeah.
And people what is maybe filmed or whatever. And so Motion Notion. Oh man. I just went off, and in the back of my brain was to dance with that idea of vision, and prayers and community. And it's interesting to think back because it's 2013 when I didn't know anybody. I really want to see the footage because I'm probably, I probably know 80% of the people I filmed
in that footage.
Now.
Yeah,
which would be kind of neat to look back on.
What's holding you back from watching the footage?
Weird fate, procrastination, fate.
Yeah. Are you worried that it's gonna
no
trigger anything?
No,
in you,
I'm not. I really want to. I've even thought of writing a book called The Disco Tao, which is the Tao of the party. To talk about these things and how they help people move and even birthdays and even celebrations. They're really important to our souls. And I figured I could do the book and then do a film about Disco Tao using that
the
footage. Because I do have a lot where it is these solo dances with some of the words, but then it'd be all these other clips. And I'd hopefully get to work with like, I'm forgetting his name. Anyway, with other festival footage. And create this beautiful feature on that take.
And I could almost guarantee people want to see something like that for sure. People love watching festival films.
Yeah.
Just because, for one, I might catch a glimpse of myself, but two, like, you get to feel that movement you get to be a part of it without actually being a part of it, right? Yeah. And also, I think it'd be really, really fun for you to release that footage in 2020.
Wow.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Where people are gonna see themselves when they were so much younger, and maybe in a completely different headset or a mindset, I should say.
Yeah. Wow, that's a great idea, actually.
We'll talk tomorrow.
All right.
Yeah. We can make it happen.
That's awesome. But yeah, I learned. It sounds weird, but yeah, I was there to dance, and did some amazing dancing and. It was very solo because I didn't know anybody, but there was a freedom to that. But it's the first time I kind of really got into shadow dancing and dancing with your shadow.
Oh yeah, right, like Peter Pan-esque, right? Yeah.
Well, I do in my workshops, especially if you're dancing under with the sun. because your shadow always looks magnificent. It's got this kind of lifted posture, and then you can dance and it moves, and you can move with it, and it takes the whole me move. It's a beautiful thing to do.
Yeah.
It helps you kind of a stretch, and I guess very metaphorical. When you dance with your shadow, you grow.
When you were there by yourself, because I assume you went alone.
Yeah.
Right? It's funny to think about how you are now, and how I know you, right? Because I would have met you roughly around that time, right? Roughly around, maybe a little bit later than that. And seeing, how personable you are, and how open and willing to have conversations with anybody and everybody. How hard was it for you back then to like come out of your comfort zone?
Oh no! See, it was special. Motion because there's another thing about festivals. The connects you make, they just feel long and there's depth to them. Emotion Ocean for me and the people who attended or are part of that community, very near and dear. One of my favorite things that I did there that I hadn't done since. There were a lot of really neat things that I got to do there because I didn't know what I was doing. And one was when people were like, what's your name? I was like, well, what do you want to call me? And people would always have a name. And it was awesome because as I moved around that festival, I'd hear that name and I remember, or I know who I was talking to.
Right. That's really great. Yeah. That this one person calls me this, right?
And it was usually the group that would too. It's been many years because there was this one group, and when I ever did tell this story, I would always mention the name that they told me because it felt good and it felt good to them. But I've forgotten the name over time.
Yeah.
It'll come back.
Yeah, eventually.
But one that I do remember was this one wicked camp. And I gave them all nicknames. And it was like drugs and rugs and hugs and bugs and Dugs. And I was Uggs.
Yeah.
And a year later, I actually remembered all their names.
Great, yeah.
Over time, because we weren't calling each other that. But the one that stuck for everybody was Hugs.
Hugs
stuck.
Yeah. You still talk to Hugs?
Oh, yeah. Those guys, man, whenever I do get to see them, they've crisscrossed. They're awesome in the name of science. It turned out a bunch of them were scientists.
Really? Oh, yeah.
And they did crazy things with drugs in the name of science. And I did them with them.
Yeah. Yeah. Guinea pig, yeah.
That first one, I didn't know that many people, but again, that Dreamweaver bus and that community was there.
Yeah.
And so that became a good route. And I remember going back, and trying to figure out the camera in the bus, being like, it's not happening. But I did memorable dances. One was where I danced in my sweater. I had this knit sweater, and I just ducked right into it, and just rolled around in this sweater, and the light that came through those little cracks, and it really took me back to being a kid, because I'm pretty sure as a kid,
it's like a womb, yeah.
And just rolled around the dance floor, and that was nice. One epic one was, and a lot of people remember this one. It was an empty dance floor, and it was a kind of cabana stage, and I think Robbie C was the DJ, and maybe even was DJing with him. I was swimming on the dance floor. I was taking strokes and backstrokes.
While standing or on the ground?
On the ground.
Yeah.
Right on the ground, right on the ground doing breaststrokes and moving. And you could pull yourself. And then about 3 to 6, and a few more people came and swam with me.
And this is the motion notion that would have been in an arena, or
no,
this is outside.
No. Oh, sorry, this is outside. This is Golden. This is the sweetest spot it ever was in any festival. Really, that spot.
I gotta say something. I've always felt like Golden smells like pee, and I don't know why. And I think maybe it's motion notion.
I think it's outside because it's called golden.
That's
why you have that
That's
association
always
in your
been
brain.
my theory. Yeah, either that or we just always stopped at the worst gas
I love
stations.
golden. No, wonderful peeps.
I went there a little while ago, and we went to the Kicking Horse Resort there, up on the mountain, and that's a beautiful place. I tell you, like once I get over my brain telling me that golden smells like pee, it's a beautiful place. So I got no qualms with golden anymore.
And so this location, I probably even should describe it. It is surrounded by mountains. It's just mountains and just these beautiful mountains that have beautiful snow. There's a river that runs through it, but you're just mountains, and you just feel in the cup of this mountain. Oh, and even better than so there's part of the mountainside looks like a yoni.
What's a yoni? Sorry,
Yoni. I was trying to come up with the best. I was like, what is the best word for that?
Yeah.
Vagina.
Yeah.
Yoni.
Right.
Right?
I know what you mean.
Delicate and powerful, and so you're kind of the feeling of care and majesty. That was that location, and getting to dance there, and getting to roll around on the ground. So anyway, the dancing on the ground later led to at night, same kind of dance form, but it's night dancing, and there's this wonderful kind of magical, mystical woman with kind of silver draperies and whatever. And she has this sword. It's a sawed-off hockey stick, so no blade. It's actually a sword with no blade.
Yeah. It's just a hilt, yeah.
And so you have the staff, and she just wrapped it all in blue duct tape. And as the handle was this rubber snake. And, she's like, I was dancing with you earlier. I was swimming with you. It's like, oh, no way. And she's like, yeah, I'm the lady of the lake. And she had the sword.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, I was dancing in the lake with the lady of the lake. And yeah. And then she let me dance with the sword for a little bit. And I gave it back. Amazing. I got to really make one of those swords again. Hockey stick, blade cut off.
Yeah.
That alone, the stories I got to tell about later on. Oh, I'm skipping ahead.
That's okay. Yeah.
So the next day, I'm walking around, and we had a good conversation. It was lovely, and about vests.
About desks?
Vests.
Okay. Vests.
And then I started walking, and I got that rainbow. My friend had tie-dyed.
Yeah.
The bed sheet.
The bed sheet we were talking about.
Yeah. It was beautiful. And she had the sword and want to dance with it again. Yeah, and so I started dancing with it. And I really gotten used to the flow of this sheet, which was captured in film. And I remember, it's so funny because I remember what was neat about it was the slow motion thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I was filming in slow motion. My other friend, who I can't remember his name, he said you could speed it up to normal. And,
you definitely can.
So
Yeah.
I look forward to that too. But I'd start dancing with the sword and the sheet and my shadow. And I'm telling story. Like, that was another thing with the dancing with my shadow that I was really getting into, was the stories I could tell myself with the shadow. I had this sweater with the hood. And just rolling through these beautiful little tales. And with the shadow and this staff sword, it became a shower curtain. It became a TV. Like, it just transformed into all these different things.
Yeah.
By the time I was done, she was gone, nowhere to be seen.
The lady of the lake.
Lady's gone.
Yeah.
Gone. But I'm left with that sword, this magical, mystical sword.
She bequeathed it onto you.
And the way I liked it, I didn't pull a sword out of a rock, but I turned it into a TV, into a shower curtain, into all the different things that it got turned into, and that for me, not King Arthur, Merlin.
Yeah, for sure. I'm pretty sure a lot of people would consider you a wizard. On that note, I don't mean to interrupt your story, but there was this one time, Andre, where I knew you were either living in Banff or you were over in Banff or something.
My
like
mom lives
that.
in Banff.
Yeah, and I knew you were visiting her or something like that, and I knew that because something had come out on social media or whatnot, or you had told me. And I was walking down the street, and I saw you. And I was like, no, not right. And then I like turned a corner, and then I was like, I gotta double check. Turned back around, and you were gone. And I was going to meet up with Liam, who's on another one of our shows, the ThunderCast.
Liam.
And I went to go meet up with Liam, and I was like, Liam, I saw Andre. He's like, no, you didn't. Andre's in Banff. And I was like, no, he is everywhere. He's a time lord, I tell you. He's a wizard. He needs to be exactly where he is exactly where he needs to be when he needs to be. Anyway, sorry. So
no.
You're dancing with the.
That's it's funny that you mentioned that you looked and then I was gone. For many reasons, I've turned out I'm really good at sneaking up on people, even I don't even mean to.
I believe it. Yeah, I believe it.
But what it reminded me of was we were talking about Dr. Bob, and I'm trying to think if it was that first. Yeah, it was. He was with me that first Motion Notion.
I would believe it. Yeah.
And the reason I don't totally remember is because he took off and he had adventures like you wouldn't believe. Like he came back. I heard ladies took him down to the river. You know, he was dancing with this other guy.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Like he was bouncing around. But yeah, he had come with me that first one. There might even be a little footage of him. But where he ended up, man alive. I'm walking around and I see this weird kind of trailer thing, this beautiful setup, like a living room, this like disco living room, and this chair and this crystal thing. And there's all these teddy bears, and I'm like, whoa, check out all these
like
teddy
a throne,
bears.
like a shrine, like a Jeffrey Dahmer shrine of teddy bears. Maybe not as aggressive.
No, they're just hanging out.
Oh, okay.
One of them's name turned out to be Jeffrey, one of the bigger monkeys.
Hopefully not the eating people part.
No. They're pretty chill. Pretty chill. And I go in there, and there's Dr. Bob. Like, what? Dr. Bob? You're chilling with these. And I get to meet the Disco Cast guys, Rongo, who I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
This is where I met them. And I met them because of Dr. Bob.
Right on.
But then I took off, went dancing. By the time I got back, he was gone again.
Yeah. Off living the Dr. Bob life.
Dr. Bob life, do what the doctor do. And so I left that Motion Notion without Dr. Bob. Full with all these other stuff. I got a new sword.
Yeah.
It's not
sword, a TV, a shower curtain.
I'm trying to remember all the other things I transformed it in because it was a better story with all the ones I can remember now are just the TV and the shower curtain.
Yeah.
Bow and arrow. It was bow and arrow. It was all sorts of beautiful things. But I met them because of Dr. Bob. He took off. That year I was supposed to go to Shambhala, but I didn't make it. I'd been at 25, but it didn't work out this time. He showed up on Facebook with friends of mine. Like, we got Dr. Bob, don't worry. The guys that
he's out there. He
was the Disco Cast guys, one of the Edmonton crew. He's like, well, I got him, don't worry. And he took him to Shambhala. We'll bring him to Shambhala, and you can go. You can meet. Reunite you at Shambhala.
Yeah.
But I didn't make it. And he said, you know what? The last thing he saw is he looked over, and Dr. Bob was on the hood of a car. He looked over, and then he looked back, and he was gone.
Dr. Bob was gone.
And that's the last I heard of him.
Man, like ever?
Yeah, ever.
Really?
Yeah, I've seen his clones at the fair. His clan. His clan.
Yeah.
His clan that I guess is obviously enslaved by our market system.
Yeah.
And they need to be won like slaves.
So
actually, I found Dr. Bob was found by my roommate Aaron, who I live with now again, and he found him in a dumpster because he had a drinking problem at the time.
Dr. Bob did?
Yeah, he did.
Dr. Bob.
We found him at his lowest, right?
Oh yeah. But you rescued the Bob.
He rescued us. That's not mistake. Yeah. I love telling stories. I tell stories with teddy bears, and I go in waves, and sometimes there's packs and teams. It's a very interesting process.
Yeah,
so
and I've seen you do it.
Just not.
When you and I went to Frog Fest, I saw you do it there like a dozen times, and it was always the most engaging thing.
Yeah.
Just like everybody would love to come and watch, a Toto show.
It's these teddy bears. They're spirits. I'm just a conduit to whatever's going on, and I learn just as much. And like they have such character, and so I don't know
That's
where
that's how I always saw it too. I never saw
yeah.
you telling the story.
No, and
right?
so like Dr. Bob told all my stories better than me. Way better than me, and because he was a teddy bear, he could be a real smart ass to people in the room.
Yeah, and
it's
nobody would get mad at you.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
and they would laugh at him. They'd be
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, you're right." Speaking of teddy bears, Jean-Pierre Claude, Puerto Rican S&M vampire.
Oh
that
yeah,
I won
Yeah.
a Halloween Fright Night over at COP.
You still have him?
No, he took off on me just before he was about to go big.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
He's gonna pop off any minute.
Leaving Broken City, I was on a bike and he took his chance to take off. But he was going to be, or is, wherever he is, the dirtiest stand-up comic there ever was.
Yeah.
So maybe it's good he took off.
Yeah, maybe. You don't want to be
He was
connected
dirty,
with that.
man. All in, but funny, right? Yeah. And because he's teddy bear, you can get away with a little bit more. He had this thing where, teddy bears in precarious positions that should start dirty minds, and he'd go off on that and shake his butt. And he had this routine where he built up to a climax on the microphone, and every time he climaxed, he goes,
Oh boy! All right. Well, I think we can probably call this one. Hey, yeah, I really appreciate you coming in and telling these stories. I know there's probably so much more that was left out of that story, but I think there's so much more potential for you to come back and tell more stories.
Yeah,
and
I'd love to.
I can't wait for more S&M vampires. Yeah, I'm telling you. Anyway, yeah. So thanks for coming in,
Thanks for having me.
and I really appreciate it. This has been the first episode, or potentially second. I'm not sure how I'm going to separate these yet. Of Expose Yourself to Christian. I'm Christian, and
Christian,
and you've been
Toto.
I appreciate it. All right, thanks everybody. Thank you for listening to this episode of Expose Yourself, a storytelling podcast by Thunder Lizard Collective. I've been your host, Christian. If you like what you heard, please give us 5 stars on iTunes, give us a follow on Spotify, and anywhere else that you listen to podcasts. You can also follow us on social media by searching Thunder Lizard Collective on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and Thunder Lizard OG on Twitter. You can use those to see when new episodes of the ThunderCast, Thunder and Dragons, and Expose Yourself are coming out. Again, thank you for listening to this episode. We hope you come back soon. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Expose Yourself, a storytelling podcast by Thunder Lizard Collective. I'm your host, Christian. Today's episode will be going over a little bit of an update with my health in regards to the very first episode of Expose Yourself. So what you're going to hear now is a clip or an excerpt from one of the last episodes of the ThunderCast. So I hope you enjoy, and let's get right into it.
Did I tell you coworkers have been messaging me asking me for movie recommendations?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Why?
I got nothing to do. Give me a movie to watch. I'm like, okay.
Your recommendations are awful. Fuck you, Liam.
Oh,
Okay.
but I typically like good movies.
You guys want to hear what happened to me?
Go for it.
Okay, so turns out I am a liar. I did not have a pulmonary embolism, as I told you both in our chat. I have what is called sarcoidosis, which apparently is a autoimmune disease that can pretty much just go away when it wants. Which sounds fine, but it still sucks. So I'm in a little bit of pain. I went to the hospital last week. I went into the ER, and I'm going to tell you this thing. So I walk into the ER. I'm by myself because I didn't want to get anybody else sick. And they have the ER separated into 2 spaces. So one's the triage and one is COVID. It's just like you walk in, they start questioning you. They give you the full rundown, just like TSA. They're just, and have a dog sniff your balls and stuff.
Not true. But they like ask you if you're coughing, if you have a fever, all the classic signs, symptoms. And I was like, I got a cough because I'm short of breath or whatever. And I'm gonna cut this long break out. I'm just thinking. And they they take my temperature, all this stuff, and then they send me into the triage. And sure enough, the lady asked me all this exact same questions again. And then they send me back to the COVID area where there's a woman there who has COVID. And I was like, God damn it. Like, you're like 6 feet away from me right now. And I understand that that's how far you have to be. But I had to walk into your bubble to get 6 feet away from your bubble. Anyway, so they give me this phone to call for admission to the hospital or whatever. Because you can't walk up to the people anymore. They're like tucked away. So you call them, you give them your information. But they gave me this sticky phone. And it was like the phone... It was awful because I know it was just hand sanitizer that was all over this thing. There's no way it was like covered in sick goo. But they give me this phone and it didn't work, so I just used my own phone. Anyway, so it took like 4 minutes for me to get into the hospital. And then they bring me into this room. And the room is like, I don't know. You guys have seen my apartment, so like the length of my apartment, right? And it is just like 4 other people in this room that have been admitted, and they're all like 6 feet apart from each other, 6 to 8 feet away from each other. And the doctors come in, and they stand about 15 feet away from you, and just ask you why you're there. Like, they ask you for everything. They give, like your fucking blood type. I mean, not seriously, but like they ask you everything. And there's no privacy, like whatsoever. So if you went in there and like you broke your penis or something like that, like good luck. You're not getting out of there without anybody knowing. Right? So the doctor's like... Yeah, it sucks. So the doctor's like standing right there and asking me all this stuff, and then they like wheel in this big machine to do an x-ray on my chest. And it's a thing. And the doctor... It's so funny. They like hit the button and like say, okay, we're taking an x-ray. And they go, x-ray? And everybody backs the fuck up. And I'm like, and you're shooting me with this thing right now. But it's totally fine if I get irradiated, but you're fine.
Who knows? Maybe you'll turn into the Hulk.
Like, hopefully. Like I said before, I went through all these tests. My dick still gets bigger. So that's a very...
So if you, say, have sex, couldn't you Hulk out and put your partner at risk?
Okay. Liam, I'm recording this for a reason. Anyway.
Hey, I gotta use some kind of humor to lighten moods.
Yeah, that's true. So anyway, they do this thing, and then they take me into this other ward after, and this is, by the way, this has been like 4 hours at this point. And so they take me into this other room, and it's like its own hospital ward kind of thing, and they put me in a room, like with a sliding door and everything, close the door. And I find out later that they put me in isolation. Like, I was because I had signs of COVID, and it was the signs of COVID where I had a dry cough.
Mm-hmm.
And I had nothing else. That was it. That was like the one symptom, but, safe and sorry. But I was in that room, and not a single person checked on me for 2 hours. And I understand that they're busy and everything, but, there's some bed etiquette. Bedside.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
Bedside manner, that's what it is. Bed-etiquette. They should call it bed-etiquette. 2 hours goes by, and then they call a CT scan, and they send me over to the CT scan area, and they wheel me into the CT scan room. I get up on the thing, and then the guy's like, do you have an IV? I was like, no. He's like, gotta go back. So that process of me getting in there took about 20 minutes.
Jeez.
Getting to CT, 20 minutes getting back. I'd wait 40 minutes for them to put the IV in, 20 minutes for that after. Take me back. CT scan takes like 15, 20 minutes. So I'm at like, 7-8 hours at this point. And then eventually, like I said, another hour goes by, and then the doctor comes in, and he's like, yeah, you didn't have a pulmonary embolism. And I was like, oh, well, that's good. But if you'd done the CT scan in the first place, then I would have known that, right?
Yeah.
And he was kind of like, yep, pretty much. And I was like, holy shit. Like,
Shit.
If you'd have done your fucking job.
Yeah.
I don't know. I shouldn't be complaining because they did figure it out. So
yeah.
That I am pleased about. But just the fact that I had to be on these blood thinners, spend like well over $300 on these medications just so that I could find out that I'd never needed them in the first place. I was so mad. But
Yeah, I guess so.
I don't have a pulmonary embolism. I got no blood clots, but
That's good.
I have a dry cough. My shoulder hurts like hell, and I have some weird pains all over my body. So those are some things. So I am a liar. I apologize to the internet, and this is me. You know,
You're not allowed to lie on the internet.
No. Everybody
Illegal.
lies, and if you say you don't lie, you're a liar.
If a liar knows he's lying, then is he lying?
Yes.
Is he?
Yes.
Are you lying? See, we're gonna transition from this into the next episode of the ThunderCast, but when we're doing visual an element this time. So that pause there is much funnier in with the camera.
Yeah. Much funnier with the video than with the audio.
Much funnier. Much funnier. Anyway, so there you go. There's another episode of Expose Yourself in the Fucking Bag.
Hey, there you go. Right on.
Thanks, boys.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Expose Yourself, a storytelling podcast by Thunder Lizard Collective. I've been your host, Christian. If you like what you heard, please give us 5 stars on iTunes, give us a follow on Spotify, and anywhere else that you listen to podcasts. You can also follow us on social media by searching Thunder Lizard Collective on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and Thunder Lizard OG on Twitter. You can use those to see when new episodes of the ThunderCast, Thunder and Dragons, and Expose Yourself are coming out. Again, thank you for listening to this episode. We hope you come back soon. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Expose Yourself, a storytelling podcast by Thunder Lizard Collective. I'm your host, Christian. On today's episode, we have my friend Ben. Just Ben. That's all he wants to go by, and that's I'm going to respect that. Ben will be telling a story about a New Year's party that kind of goes sideways. Well, for him, I don't know about everybody else, but if you like puke and socks and things of that sort, then this is the story for you. So a little bit of a warning there. This story does involve a lot of drinking and some other gross imagery, so be warned of that. Otherwise, let's jump right into it. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Expose Yourself, a storytelling podcast by Thunder Lizard Collective. I'm here with a friend of mine. His name is Ben. Hello, Ben.
Hey.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me, Christian.
I don't know if you want to say your last name or what. Like how incriminating is this story?
I mean, it's honestly, it's to the point where I don't even know why I'm telling it to you. But
okay,
I feel like it's been
Ben.
long enough.
Yeah.
Just Ben's good.
Yeah, that's good. Just Ben. That's what it's going to say in the episode. It's going to say, Expose Yourself featuring Just Ben.
Just Ben.
That's it.
Yeah.
Cool. So, you want to give us a quick little briefing of what we're going to be hearing right now?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've had a fairly non-dramatic life, Christian, and this is probably the only, I think, good story that I have with regards to it's just embarrassing.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. You want to let's fire it off, meatbag.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I should do like a disclaimer about the story first. It's nothing. I don't think traumatic, but the big thing. It's just like a drinking incident.
Yeah.
And I think those stories are a little bit funnier if you know that the person who has had this incident, I've been lucky to have a fairly healthy relationship with alcohol my whole life. So I feel like it's a little bit funnier just knowing that going into it.
Yeah, like, if you do happen to struggle with addiction or anything like that, maybe skip this episode because there's probably going to be a little bit of talk about alcohol. It sounds like, right? So.
Yeah.
But so disclaimer right there. This is a drinking story.
Yeah. I think this is one of them, or probably the most embarrassing thing that has ever happened to me. And I think back on it all the time. And it was, It was New Year's. I didn't rehearse this before coming on here, so I don't even know what year it was. I
Off
think
the
it
cuff,
was
man.
2011, maybe we'll say. But I was living in a house with my first house after moving out from my parents' place. We had like a 2-level, like we just called it a party house because it was pretty shit. And am I allowed to swear?
Oh yeah, no, fuck it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
swear away, man.
Yeah, so we called it a party house because it was a terrible house. The basement floor was like a piece of plywood on top of the dirt.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And yeah,
Undeveloped.
everything was awful. And we were at that stage, of just having graduated high school, of just wanting to do that party.
Yeah, of course.
And so, yeah, so we had a big rager, me and my roommate at the time, and she invited a bunch of her friends, and I invited a bunch of my friends. And
Roughly how many people were there? Roughly. Let's set the stage.
Yeah, okay. Let's say, oh gosh, I mean, it's not going to be like a Hollywood party. I'd say,
No Gatsby here. Yeah.
yeah, I'd say 30, like maximum 30.
Still quite a bit of people. That's like
Yeah.
an entire like elementary class, you know?
Yeah. And I will preface it by saying that, like, I think everybody who was there, we'll get into why I'm not entirely sure later, but I think everybody there was, it was all part of the same friend group. So it wasn't like sketchy or anything. It was
Right.
just a good time. Yeah. But, yeah, this is a classic story of, like, I think I saw midnight, but I think I probably got to 9 before I was out of commission.
Right.
Like, I think it was that there was nerves with hosting and I don't know, just whatever. I was inviting a girl that I was pretty into at the time, so there was some nerves around that. And by 9:30, I was pretty rough. Like I was done.
When did the party start, roughly? Let's.
It probably would have probably would have started filtering in around like 7. Like I said, we were friends with these people, so it probably started earlier, just as people started trickling in.
Right.
Yeah, and I was hitting it pretty hard. So
Fair enough. Do you remember what you were drinking?
I have literally no idea. That part of my life, I don't think I even cared what I was drinking, you know?
Fair enough, yeah. Jaeger mixed with like 7-Up and shit.
Oh God, it was probably something absolutely ridiculous like that. Yeah. Yeah, so I had invited this girl who I was very excited that she was coming. I worked at Starbucks back when I was younger and more charming than now. And
No, don't sell yourself short.
Oh, I will. I'm gonna do that this whole story. These are about the glory days.
That's true, yeah.
And it was the classic, like, we'd seen each other a couple times, man, and like she was from the neighborhood and the heart would kind of flutter a little bit, and I got to the point of like I wrote my number on her cup and she texted me, and I think had seen each other at this point maybe once or twice, in like a casual in the neighborhood, like going on a walk type thing.
Yeah.
And so I was feeling pretty good about it, and I think things were looking pretty good. And so I invited her to this New Year's party, and I think she was actually from out of town, so she was pretty quick to accept to be, invited to something like this,
right.
Which was great. But she was showing up later, which is a bad omen because I did not make it till later. So I was out of commission by 9, and really everything embarrassing happened past that point.
So this is stuff that you've been told that had happened?
You know what? I actually have a pretty good memory of stuff. I tend to not get blackout. Like if I'm not asleep, I know what's happening and will remember it.
Good. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, which is tough because, like I said, this is an embarrassing story, and it's because I remember every moment, every waking moment of it.
For sure.
Yeah. So by out of commission, I mean I was put to bed because I was a liability at this point. And anyway, so I'm texting with this girl, and she's showing up. And of course, I'm not telling her, like, they put me to bed. So I think she shows up probably about 10:30, maybe, like a respectable time for a New Year's party.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And so I like run outside, and at this point I still have clothes on, which is great. And
That alludes
she's,
to the fact that later you probably don't have clothes on.
I mean, yeah, I'm not a literary master, but that was foreshadowing.
That was
for sure.
foreshadowing.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, and so she was getting out of a cab, and I was like, "Hey, how's it going?" Or whatever you say in that situation, and brought her back up to our dingy party house, and I think it probably took her 5 minutes before she realized, like, okay, this
This is not the guy I know.
yeah, yeah. Like this is a little bit different than of a situation than I thought I was getting myself into. Luckily, like she was very lovely and very social and very graceful in this whole situation. So she was out having so much fun with all the other people, and I was constantly being put to bed by people. So I don't even know if she had a terrible time. I just assumed she had a terrible time.
Wait,
because
so
my
like a
memory of this-
gremlin, you would crawl back out of bed to join the party, only
Oh,
to be
yeah.
put back to crawl back
Yeah.
out again. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're like a 6-year-old who wants to watch Saturday Night Live with his parents.
Yeah, and it wasn't even like, I mean, oh man, this is uh it's bad in like I would get out of bed and like go and like grab her hand and be like, "Come on, we're gonna go and kiss in my bedroom." Or,
Yeah.
whatever people do in their bedrooms. Which is not a
Sleep.
not a good look. Oh my God, yeah, sleep. Yeah, that's I just think back to that about how horrified I am that happened. But anyways, yeah, I would go out and like grab her and be like, "Come on back," and she she would like be like, "All right," and then she'd be like, "Okay, you got to go to bed," and then try to leave, and then I was like, "No, don't leave," and then I'd go out and try to find her again. Yeah, it was bad. I'm horrified just even thinking about it.
Right.
But like I said, she was just so great at chatting and enjoying herself with all the other patrons of this party. That every time I went to like grab her, it was like she was there and she was like talking with people and having fun. And so I was of course, looking back on it, I'm like the fucking asshole. I can't get that out of my mind. The worst, the worst person, man. The worst
Yeah.
person.
Bummer.
Yeah. So as the night goes on and I start feeling a little bit worse, because I actually don't think that I had stopped drinking at this point.
Right. So
I'd
you're just
been-
in your bed, sucking back tequila.
Yeah.
And,
or something, or
Yeah.
like every time I gremlined out of my room, I would find something to pour into myself. Yeah, it was not great. So it got to the point where I was, to paint the picture even further. So I don't have a box spring or like a frame for my mattress at this point. I still
mattress
don't.
on the floor.
Mattress on the floor, mattress on this carpeted dark beige floor. And there's really nothing there. Like I have a desk with a crappy computer on it. And around me actually is, because Christmas had just happened. So around me is all of these presents that I was bringing back from my parents' house. And they were still in like large bags. Like I remember there were like large Abercrombie and Fitch bags, just things that you would like carry all of these gifts in, that my parents had given me, and I just hadn't unpacked them because I was 20 years old and
Right. Yeah.
was drunk. Yeah. So I got to the point where I started becoming sick. And so there were two things that were amazing about this. One was that the way the house was constructed, it was just like this long, narrow corridor. It wasn't a square like most houses are. This was a long rectangle. And so you had the living room where most people were, and then you had the basement where the other half of people were. And in between that was this long hallway connecting that to the stairwell going down. And right in the middle of that hallway was my room with the door open. And I am like, at this point, probably half naked, if not naked,
Full. Yeah. Full frontal
vomiting.
nudity. Yes.
vomiting on my carpet while people are like having fun and transitioning between playing beer pong downstairs and hanging out in the living room.
Right.
And man, I remember my door being open and just people, like I felt like I was an animal at a a zoo where people would I would look up and there'd be a different person standing there being like, and they'd be like gripping the molding of the door being like, so
You have like one person's head and then another person's head stacked on top of each other, like poking
like
themselves
the Scooby-Doo.
in. Yeah. And were you like trying to
and-
like scoop it up and like clean it, or?
So I was trying to scoop it up and clean it, and that brings me to this Abercrombie and Fitch bag. So inside the Abercrombie and Fitch bag was the classic like 48 pack of Champion socks.
Oh yeah.
That
Which are now
everybody has-
probably worth like $500,000 because Champion for some
baby.
reason is just popping
They
off.
were.
But
Yeah, I don't know what's up with that. But,
yeah, me neither.
God, that was the brand to buy for like if you wanted 1 million socks for $2, that's what you got.
Yeah, for sure.
So so I had these socks and I had this idea after being like I need to puke into something. I was like that giant bag is what's going to happen. And then I pulled out these socks and while seeing the socks I was like, "Oh my god." And meanwhile, I could clean up. So I started putting the socks on my hands and scooping
Makeshift
into
oven
the-
mitts, yeah.
Oh yeah. And what I didn't realize at the time that I realized the next morning was that the bag, being an Abercrombie and Fitch bag that doesn't have to be watertight, was not watertight, and there was just a hole in the bottom. So when I was scooping in, it was just coming right out.
Right
the bottom,
back
you know?
out.
Yeah. And so yeah, that was great. I remember like I ran through I think all of those socks, or most of them at least, while people were like, "Who are you?" And, like people I'd never met before.
Is
who
this,
were,
is
like,
this your bedroom?
Yeah, and oh man, people being like, "Hey, how are you?" I'm not gonna get closer, but how, you know?
Yeah, you doing okay?
Yeah.
You all right, man?
Yeah, man, it was that was bad. So, anyways, I actually don't remember how this girl who I was so excitedly pursuing got home, and I really don't remember even talking to her about it, which is, yeah, I don't know.
Did you talk to her again, like after all this went down?
Yeah, we talked to each other again, but I don't think it was ever in a romantic context after that.
Yeah. Once you see
escapade.
somebody's cleaning their own vomit up with socks for hands, like,
Yeah, while like naked, looking like Gollum on the ground, like
I
that.
can imagine. I
Yeah.
see it in my head, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a very similar interaction. I was my buddy Steve was having a graduation party or something like that. I don't remember what was going on. But
Yeah.
oh, right, he was moving to Saskatchewan for some stupid reason.
Okay.
Anyway, and he had a house party, so there was a lot of people over at his place, and I was the same way. 7 p.m. Showed up, not a person by 8:30.
Yeah,
and
classic.
having consumed enough alcohol to probably put down a small village, and I started feeling quite ill, obviously,
Yeah.
and quite nauseous, but I also had to poop. So
Uh-oh.
I went to the bathroom, obviously, and I was
Oh.
sitting on the toilet, and I was pooping, but I
Uh-huh.
also had to start puking, and the only thing I could find was a bag of like a half full bag of toilet paper. So I just started puking into this toilet paper bag while I'm pooping at the same time.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I forgot to lock the door. So this girl named Sarah opens the door and she's like, "What the fuck is freaking out?"
Oh no.
And then she starts laughing and starts motioning for all these other people to come. And I wasn't really friends with any of these people. And they're just like lingering like Scooby-Doo in the door,
Yeah.
laughing at me while I'm pooping and puking at the same time. And I just
man.
remember it being just like incredibly cathartic. I felt like I felt like that was my purpose. I felt like I should have
Really?
just kept being that person. No, I'm fucking around. No, that was awful. and
It's
then
the worst, man.
and then Steve put me in his basement, tucked away in a corner, with a small blanket and a bucket, and that was how I spent the rest of the evening. So that was
Well,
fun.
so we need more people like Steve and less like Sarah, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Sarah ended up being a nice person. I have spoken to her since, but a lot of the other people at that party are not great human beings. But I don't know. Maybe I'll have them on the show and see how they remember this.
Yeah. That's what you should do. You should interview the other halves of these parties to see how it goes from the other side.
Yeah.
That's it.
Sorry, was that it? You were cleaning puke up with your socks?
Yeah, I think like a nice follow up to that I think ties everything together nicely with a bow. Uh, but I do want to really hammer home that if anybody out there is doing what Sarah did or what any of my friends were doing, which was not closing the door behind them and letting somebody be this attraction for, don't do that.
Yeah.
Help a brother out.
Just be a decent human being. Close the door.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Don't draw attention to it. Maybe close the door.
Seriously.
And then stand there and be like, someone's in there having a tough time.
Yeah,
You
these
know?
would have been open and shut cases. I've no shame for cleaning puke off the ground. I only have shame if somebody else saw it because it meant that it happened.
That's right. Yeah, I had exactly like if the door was closed, then you could have just pretended like none of that happened at all.
Yeah, it wasn't
Right?
me.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it wasn't you. Somebody else came in here and puked and used my champion socks.
Yeah.
All right,
And it was really rude of them to do so. Yeah.
that's true. Yeah, sorry. So you did end up speaking to her again.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, it was never in the same type of friendship.
Right.
That what we were kind of aiming for previous to that. But yeah, she's very lovely, and we've hung out and had many good times since then. But yeah, not the same. But the day after, so I woke up the morning after quite early, and I saw this catastrophe that I had created off to the side of my mattress. And I thought, when you wake up and you're like just amped, even though you're hungover as all hell.
Oh yeah.
But you just have like this spike of adrenaline that alerts you in the morning. So I was like, I'm gonna clean it up. And so I cleaned it up. I probably spent like an hour finding products and like rubbing it into the carpet and shampooing the carpet. And I felt very good about myself. And then everybody else started waking up. We had probably 10 or 11 people who had slept over, who again were good friends at the time. And we decided to go to Chinatown to get some dim sum, which I think is like a classic New Year's Eve thing for apparently every white person in Calgary. Because
Yep.
that's who was at that restaurant. Yeah.
Pretty much.
I remember that. Yeah. There's kind of a fun side story in there where another person woke up and instead of cleaning the carpet like I did, they took the world's largest shit. And we didn't have a plunger. So it kind of turned into like, we need to go out and get a plunger while we're out. Why don't we get dim sum? So that's why we're getting dim sum. We all walked in with like hoods up, glasses on, like we were in a gang. Today it's like cemented in my memory as like, this is the coolest I'll ever look. Like, Dave is over there with his family of 12 and like they're having a great breakfast and we walk in and sit down and everybody like can probably smell the booze on us. It was,
for sure.
Yeah. So
I love how the coolest you think you've ever looked was when you were ungodly hungover and just wearing sunglasses,
man.
probably.
it was the most I've ever felt like I was in a movie.
Yeah.
And it was what's that one movie? The Hangover. That was the movie I was in. But so halfway through the meal, my roommate looks over and she says, "We got to do something about your carpet." And I say, "Don't worry. I'm very proud of myself. I woke up early. I took care of the whole thing." And she was like, "What did you use to clean the carpet?" And I said, "Oh, I went into the bathroom and we had a thing in there called carpet." And she said, "Nope, we don't have that." And I said, "Yeah, it's green and it has a big red, it says carpet." And she says, "Do you mean comet?" And I said, "Yes, I mean comet." And so, over the next like couple of days, this large like bleached patch in the dark brown rug materialized where I had turned it into like a bright white carpet that was not supposed to be white. So I made it worse.
It's the icon of your failure,
Yeah.
Just sitting there.
Yeah, I just think that is like the best way to end that story.
So was that pulled out of your damage deposit?
Oh, it was. And you know what sucked, man? I at some point we had a broken wall, and I sawed drywall and like puttied that whole thing up and then painted over it with cans of paint that I found in our horrifying dungeon of a basement, and it looked amazing. And I still didn't get it back because of the carpet.
Bummer. Yeah.
I know, man.
You should have just
Stuff.
kicked a hole in the wall anyway. How long did you live there for?
Probably I think 2 years, but we did probably 8 years worth of damage to that house.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. The reason I know there was dirt under the basement is because we like jumped through it. I don't know what. Yeah, this was when Skrillex came out, so there was a lot of jumping, I think.
I gotcha. Yeah.
You know
I recall those days. Yeah. Whatever happened to dubstep, man?
Man, I don't know. It was a flash in the pan.
Yeah. I wish. I don't wish dubstep would come back. I really don't.
You know what I think is going to be hilarious is in 20 years when you have the entire adult population of people is still going to have like a nostalgic collection to music that sounds like smashing frying pans
Yeah,
on
totally.
a sidewalk. Like, I don't know. There's this weird blip. There's this weird blip in the world of people who are going to be okay with that.
Yeah, that's the gas leak kids, you know.
Yeah,
They're the ones that like, they lost a couple brain cells. So, I mean, I'm one of them. So, yeah,
Yeah, totally.
I'll always be nostalgic for Centipede or whatever the hell that song is called.
Which one's that? Is that a Skrillex song as well?
I assume. I think aren't they all Skrillex songs?
I mean, I don't know.
Like Skrillex just wrote them for other people and then they played them. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, a single person defined genre. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's great. What a great guy. I'm just kidding. I don't
Yeah.
know. His name's Sonny. I saw Skrillex once. I was at Sasquatch Music Festival. Toot my own boop boop. And yeah, he literally didn't stand at the computer at all. It looked like he pushed play and then he jumped into the crowd, and that was how we did the show. You know. And I was like, this isn't a show. Like, try and
But
at
it
least.
was an experience. You were there.
That's true. Yeah. And then I had my bag stolen. Oh, that's right.
That's
same
an
night.
experience.
By a Skrillex fan. So, you know what? Fuck
Oh.
Skrillex. I take it back.
Okay.
He's on my list now. Fuck him.
Yeah, I'm with you. Let's take him down.
That's right. Well, I think that's a
That's
good sentiment to end the show on. Fuck Skrillex.
Fuck Skrillex.
Yeah.
That's the moral of the story.
Pretty much. That's what everything boils down to.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming on, Ben. I appreciate it.
Hey,
just Ben.
Thanks for having me.
Just Ben. That's
That's
Ben.
me.
Well, that was Ben. This has been Expose Yourself. We'll see you again in a couple weeks. Thank you for listening to this episode of Expose Yourself, a storytelling podcast by Thunder Lizard Collective. I've been your host, Christian. If you like what you heard, please give us 5 stars on iTunes, give us a follow on Spotify, and anywhere else that you listen to podcasts. You can also follow us on social media by searching Thunder Lizard Collective on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and Thunder Lizard OG on Twitter. You can use those to see when new episodes of the ThunderCast, Thunder and Dragons, and Expose Yourself are coming out. Again, thank you for listening to this episode. We hope you come back soon. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Expose Yourself, a storytelling podcast by Thunder Lizard Collective. I'm your host, Christian. Today's episode is all about cultural differences with my friend Paul. If you've ever been curious about what goes on inside of a Hutterite colony, this is the story for you. Let's jump right into it. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Expose Yourself, a storytelling podcast by Thunder Lizard Collective. I'm your host, Christian, and I'm joined by...
Paul Van Hoodegem.
There we go. Hello, Paul. Paul and I know each other through a few streams, I suppose. Most importantly, through a friend of ours named John, who was, I believe, your roommate and classmate for quite a long time. John is a friend of not only this show, but also the ThunderCast and the other shows that we do through the Thunder Lizard Collective. But Paul, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I just graduated with a Bachelor of Arts from the University of Lethbridge. I was there for a couple of years. I lived in a house with John, as you said. Yeah, I'm a little bit of a writer. I'm a little bit of a director. I'm a little bit of an actor. I sort of like to do anything I can. it's more fun that way.
Yeah, for sure. How would you classify like the genre you like to write in? Are you kind of all over the place?
I am. I mean, I love absurdity. So the last piece that I wrote had a lot of Samuel Beckett in mind when I was writing it. But
Yes. Yeah. Right
yeah.
on. That's awesome. So, what is it about theater and directing and writing and stuff that draws you in?
Well, I love directing because I love working with people. Um, I have to tell you the truth. Like whenever I act, I'm like mortified and stressed out the entire time.
Yeah.
But when I'm
I don't
direct,
act personally, and that's the exact reason why.
yeah.
Yeah.
But when I'm directing, I feel calm. Like I'm definitely not as stressed out. It's like you're working with people, and like when you see something great happen, you're just like you fill with glee, and I love that feeling.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
So this story, if you want to give us just like a brief little, we'll just get right into it because I mean that's the name of the game, that's the name of the show.
yeah,
So, do you want to give us just like a brief little description of what you're gonna be indulging us
sure.
with?
Yeah. A couple of years back, um, I was working through my practicums for the education department at the University of Lethbridge, which I stepped back from last year. But when I was still in the thick of it, my very first practicum was at a Hutterite colony, and I had never been to a Hutterite colony. I'd never really interacted with Hutterites or Mennonites or anything of the sort. Being from Calgary, I didn't see many of those kinds of people. But when I went to Lethbridge, I was definitely like thrust in and saw a bit more of their culture and like experienced a bit more of their culture. But like when I went to actually experienced every single like weekday of a Hutterite colony during practicum, like my mind was blown.
Yeah.
But it was especially blown because of my very first day, which was so little about teaching and so much more about just crazy wackiness. Well, I gotta give you a play-by-play
Yes.
because it's just it goes on and it goes on and it's one of the weirdest experiences I've ever had in my life. So I started um, and uh, I was working with two teachers who had worked on the colony, and I was working under them, and they were both really great people. The schools were split up into the elementary and the junior high because at Hattaway colonies they only take up to grade 9 and then they graduate and then go start working in the kitchens or in the fields or whatever. And I was working. My job was to help out the teacher from the older school, and so they didn't want me to drive out there. We all carpooled together, and so we started our carpool. We left from the McDonald's at Lethbridge. They got coffees and they got me a breakfast sandwich, and we started our drive. And I sat in the back of their Jeep and heard all of these stories. They were talking to each other, and then they would talk to me a little bit too. And they gave me a few warnings. And this was the start of my confusion here was when they said, "Don't let them uh, give you alcohol because they will try to give you alcohol." And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, I won't let the parents give me alcohol." And they're like, "No, don't let the kids give you alcohol."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, okay, sure, yes," because supposedly the children would fill water bottles of their parents' alcohol and pass it around sometimes. So
Mm.
I had to be wary of that, which was not something I would have been wary of in a public school setting, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Okay, and so we went there and they gave me a couple warnings. They talked me through a little bit of it, but they didn't really say anything about what the day was going to progress to be, and I wish they had because it ended up being weird. So we got there, and the teacher I was working under, he went off to grab a coffee, and the other teacher who taught the younger classes drove me around the Hutterite colony to show me the ropes, show me everything around there. And so she went through and she drove me past. It's like, here's where all the houses are. Here where they're building the new houses. Here's where they slaughter the ducks. Here's where they slaughter the chickens. Here's where they slaughter the pigs. I was like, okay, I'm not going there.
A lot of slaughtering going on here, yeah.
And yeah, so they had like a lot of building operations, a lot of slaughtering operations, but and they had like field of cows and everything. They had a giant pile of crap where all of the farm cats just spent all of their time, and
would they just like
I
roll
swear
around in it?
I mean, that's what farm cats do, I guess. It's just, it was all of the cow turds all in a pile, and that's where all the cats spent most of their time. And so we started off the day strong. They showed me all of that, and then we got into the little portable school area. And it was nice. Like I'd had portables before, and this was essentially that. It was like an old like 70s, 80s 90s style classroom. They had like lots of books, lots of bookshelves, lots of books, but the majority of the books that were being read by the students were westerns. Which I thought was quite funny because I had talked with, I can't remember who I had talked with, but somebody had told me afterwards that the Hutterites are essentially just German cowboys, and I mean that's true.
Yeah. Were they just like those like penny books, like the serials?
Yeah, like penny western serials. They all had like a picture of a guy with a scruffy beard and like a mean look on his face, holding a pistol or something. Yeah, so there was like loads of books and the teacher's desk and all of the kids' desks. And so we got in there. All the kids gave me weird glances as I walked in, and the teacher introduced me. And then we started off the day, and we started off with math, which I don't know anything about. I'm horrible at math. Like I know
that's why we went into the arts, right, Paul?
Yeah,
I'm
right?
also not good at math.
I know my way around math. Like I can do some math, but he sort of the teacher sort of just handed me a multiplication table, and he said, "Okay, take okay, I can't say any of the kids' names.
No.
So I'm just gonna call them all Jebediah for the contexts of this.
Even all of them. They're all Jebediah.
Every single one.
Yes.
They're all Jebediah. Jebediah 1 through 18. So he told me he's like, okay, go take Jebediah, go into the back room and do his 7 and 9 multiplication tables. And I was like, oh, okay. Not wanting to show any weakness on the first day. I was like, okay, I'll do this. And I went into the back room and I was like, okay, what is 4 times 7? And then he answered and I was like, great, not knowing if the answer was correct or not. And I was like, okay, what's 9 times 7? He's like, and then he said his answer and I was like, okay, good, you're doing great. And I did that a couple more times and I was like, great, you did a good job.
Man,
and
this kid knows
like,
more than me.
Yeah, I didn't care. I was too worried about anything, like any repercussions I had. So I was like, okay, just go back into the classroom. And I grabbed the piece of paper that the teacher had given me and I just like slid it under a bin. And then I just like walked out of the room because I didn't know what to do. Luckily, that didn't come back to bite me in the butt. He never asked about it since. So that all worked out. And so we went on, and math was long time done, and we started on reading time. And this is when it all got weird. So they started reading, and the teacher says, okay, start reading. Mr. Van Hootigam's going to like walk around and talk to you all, get to know a little bit about you. I'm going outside. I'm going to go hammer some stakes into the ground. And then he left.
Yeah.
And I was so confused.
Man's got to do what a man's got to do, you know?
what did he mean by that? And I was left alone in there. I think there was a teacher's assistant with me, but he was off in the corner with one of the other kids, and I was there wandering through the aisles of Hutterite children.
I just imagine
Trying to-
in a public school, if your teacher said, "I gotta go hammer some stakes into the ground," like that definitely does not mean he's gonna go hammer some stakes in the ground. He's probably drinking in the teacher's room. This teacher
Yeah,
probably
like,
was doing, he'd probably
he
been putting
was
it
doing
off. Like, he's like,
Yeah,
I got this time now.
so I had no idea what he meant. I didn't ask him until later. And so he was outside hammering stakes on the ground, and I was walking around, um, talking to all the kids reading their Western books, and they were from ages like I don't know, like 10 to 15. 15 is the oldest that they get before they move on. And so like each of them had like their own different reactions. Like the older ones were sort of more snide, and the younger ones were sort of more accepting. And there was this one kid who was definitely reading underneath his reading level. He was reading One Fish, Two Fish, Red Fish, Blue Fish, which is one of my favorite Dr. Seuss books. And I said, hey, you're reading Dr. Seuss? And he's like, yes, I love it. I love it because it has rhymes. And I'm like, great. Like, what's your favorite part? He's like, the rhymes. And I'm like, okay, awesome, great, okay, keep reading. You do you, man. And so that went on, and I walked through the aisles and I talked to them, and that all went great. And then we got to recess, and all of the kids who had sort of they were sort of more accepting of me now. They were more on my side. Um, I was about to go like sit down and get my bearings, and one of the kids asked me. They all ran out into the field, and one of the kids asked me, "Hey, Mr. Van Hoonigan, do you want to come play Chinese baseball with us?" And I looked back in like confusion again, because like I had no idea what Chinese baseball was,
Right.
and I went to my friends afterwards, and they had no idea what it was, so I was visibly concerned. So I followed these kids down to the field, and then they just started playing kickball.
Oh.
And
Oh yeah.
I was like, I can see how you made that connection, but I can also see that there's a little bit of racism going on here. But
Maybe a little,
who am I
yeah.
to judge? So I watched them play that for a little bit, and then I was like, okay, I need to go like get my bearings before we start on the next section. And I walk up, and there's Jebediah, who was reading the Dr. Seuss book. I walk up, and I see his legs sticking out of the other portable, and I'm confused. And I'm like, "What are you doing in there?" And then he pops up, and he's like, "Here, Mr. Van Hoonigan," and he hands me a kitten, and he just puts it in my hands, and I'm like, "Oh, thank you."
Yeah, that's
And
yours
he-
now.
And I was mostly concerned because I was allergic to cats. So I was like, "Great, thank you for this gift. I'm gonna give it back to you and go
Yeah.
wash my hands now." So the morning started off great. I was very confused, and it just got more confusing after that. I went back in, and then um, after recess, we did a little bit more. We did some writing practice. They did some more reading. They did a couple workbooks, and the teacher kept going outside, taking different students to come nail more spikes into the ground. And I finally figured out what it was. Like, I asked him after the second time, and he was like, "Yes, okay. We've been doing a little bit of work around the portables to make them look nicer, and we have to get this done because we have a party in the afternoon that we have celebrating all of the work that we've got done. And we haven't got it all done yet, so we need to finish before we can have the party." And
That's right. You can't celebrate anything if there's nothing to celebrate, right?
Exactly. So they were out. He kept taking different students to go and help him while I was in there helping them with their work. And we went to the day, and we got to lunch, and I had packed my lunch, so I was ready to finally like sit, have a break, eat my lunch in the back room which was my area that the teacher had assigned for me. And so just about to go eat my lunch, another one of the kids pulls on my shoulder and says, "Hey, Mr. Van Hoonigan, you're eating lunch with us, right?" And because I'm so nice and I hate being rude, I said, yes, and put my lunch aside and went with them and got a full experience of Hutterite eating. And so the kitchen was just across the field from the school. It was the school, and then all of the houses, and then the kitchen, which was shared. And the kids ate on in the left dining room, and all the adults ate in the east dining room. And so there were just like four big long banquet tables, and like I sat down at them with all the 14 and 12 and 11 and 10 and 8 and 9 year olds, and the women served us uh, fries and fried turkey because that's what they had on Thursdays, and I ate it, and it was pretty darn good. Like I gotta say, my time at the Hutterite Colony, the food was pretty fantastic. They had some of the best carrot juice that I've ever had. I tried to bring some home for John, but he did not appreciate it and did not want to drink it.
Yeah.
So
I was gonna say you should have gotten the recipe. Maybe it was.
I should have.
Just
I'm
carrots?
sure it was just pure carrot, nothing else.
Very good carrot. I will say that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that went on, and I had lunch, and we ate and left, and they asked me a whole bunch of questions. I don't remember many now. I think the majority of the questions were like, was I married, and how many kids did I have, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so we went off. Everybody finished eating. They went to go play some more Chinese baseball. And then I went to join the other teachers in the other portable just to talk a little bit while everybody was playing outside. And so I went in there, and there's the kitten again, just like crawling on the elementary school teacher's desk. And so me and the teachers and the TAs are all sitting in the room. We're talking. They asked me a little bit about myself. I asked them a little bit about themselves. And it was good. And then we just hear outside the window. And we all look out, and there's 5 kids holding on to one singular ATV just driving past the window. And I looked confused again, and they're like, "Don't worry, they do this all the time." And the teacher I was working with looked out the window, and he's like, "Oh, yeah, okay, they fell off again. Don't worry about it." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay,
The injuries
sure."
are common around here. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was great, and then we went into the afternoon, and we started off with like a little bit more of a work period, and then I think at 2 o'clock, my teacher told everybody to put their stuff down, and he got all of the class together, including myself, and he said, "All right, now we have to get all of our work done before we can have the party. So no more school today. We're only landscaping." And my head like exploded. I was like, what is this? Like, what am I doing here? Is this actually school?
You're hammering
Or
stakes.
am
That's
I-
what you're doing here.
I'm just like free labor for the next like 4 weeks. He put us all into groups, and he's like, okay, you two take Mr. Van Hoodegem, go grab some shovels and start shoveling bark mulch. And I was like, okay. I mean, like I'd done this before. I knew what I
Yeah.
was doing, but I was not expecting to do it today. So, so I went down with them, and we walked down to the sheds where they kept all of the shovels. And so we walked down the hill going to get our shovels, and they both asked me again like 2 or 3 more times if I was married and whatnot. And I said, no. Are you married? No. Are you married? No. Because I mean, me being 20 was when I was there. They would have been married by then, probably, or just about to be married by then. So it was very unique that I wasn't. And so we walked down the hill. We went to go get the shovels, and they were like, "First, we need to make a pit stop in this building. I have to grab a wheelbarrow." And there's Jebediah, who was reading the Dr. Seuss book. I walk up and I see his legs sticking out of the other portable, and I'm confused. And I'm like, "What are you doing in there?" And then he pops up and he's like, "Here, Mr. Van Hootigem," and he hands me a kitten, and he just puts it in my hands, and I'm like, mostly concerned because I was allergic to cats. So I was like, "Great. Thank you for this gift. I'm gonna give it back to you and go wash my hands now." So the morning started off great. I was very confused, and it just got more confusing after that. I went back in, and then um, after recess, we did a little bit more. We did some writing practice. They did some more reading. They did a couple workbooks, and the teacher kept going outside, taking different students to come nail more spikes into the ground. And I finally figured out what it was. Like, I asked him after the second time, and he was like, "Yes, okay. We've been doing a little bit of work around the portables to make them look nicer, and we have to get this done because we have a party in the afternoon that we have celebrating all of the work that we've got done. We haven't got it all done yet, so we need to finish before we can have the party."
That's right. You can't celebrate anything if there's nothing to celebrate, right?
Exactly. So they were out. He kept taking different students to go and help him while I was in there helping them with their work. And we went to the day, and we got to lunch, and I had packed my lunch, so I was ready to finally like sit, have a break, eat my lunch in the back room, which was my area that the teacher had assigned for me. And so just about to go eat my lunch, another one of the kids pulls on my shoulder and says, "Hey, Mr. Van Hootigem, you're eating lunch with us, right?" And because I'm so nice and I hate being rude, I said, "Yes," and put my lunch aside and went with them and got a full experience of Hutterite eating. And so the kitchen was just across the field from the school. It was the school, and then all of the houses, and then the kitchen, which was shared. And the kids ate in the left dining room, and all the adults ate in the east dining room. And so there were just like four big long banquet tables, and like I sat down at them with all the 14 and 12 and 11 and 10 and 8 and 9 year olds, and the women served us fries and fried turkey, because that's what they had on Thursdays. Every Thursday they had French fries and fried turkey. And
Without fail, every Thursday. That's
every
wow.
Thursday. That's what they had. That's what they had, and I ate it, and it was pretty darn good. Like I gotta say, my time at the Hutterite Colony, the food was pretty fantastic. They had some of the best carrot juice that I've ever had. I tried to bring some home for John, but he did not appreciate it and did not want to drink it.
Yeah.
So
I was gonna say you should have gotten the recipe. Maybe it was.
I should have.
Just
I'm
carrots?
sure it was just pure carrot, nothing else.
Very good carrot. I will say that.
Yeah. And so that went on, and I had lunch, and we ate and laughed, and they asked me a whole bunch of questions. I don't remember many now. I think the majority of the questions were like, was I married, and how many kids did I have, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so we went off. Everybody finished eating. They went to go play some more Chinese baseball. And then I went to join the other teachers in the other portable, just to talk a little bit while everybody was playing outside. And so I went in there, and there's the kitten again, just like crawling on the elementary school teacher's desk. So me and the teachers and the TAs are all sitting in the room. We're talking. They asked me a little bit about myself. I asked them a little bit about themselves, and it was good. And then we just hear outside the window, and we all look out, and there's 5 kids holding on to one singular ATV, just driving past the window. And I looked confused again, and they're like, "Don't worry, they do this all the time." And the teacher I was working with looked out the window, and he's like, "Oh, yeah, okay, they fell off again. Don't worry about it." I was like,
Yeah.
"Okay,
The injuries
sure.
are common around here, yeah.
Yeah." So that was great, and then we went into the afternoon, and we started off with like a little bit more of a work period, and then I think at 2 o'clock, my teacher told everybody to put their stuff down, and he got all of the class together, including myself, and he said, "All right, now we have to get all of our work done before we can have the party. So no more school today. We're only landscaping." And my head like exploded. I was like, "What is this? Like, what am I doing here? Is this actually school?
You're hammering
Or
stakes.
am
That's
I
what you're doing here.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm just like free labor for the next like 4 weeks?" I don't know. So I went he put us all into groups, and he's like, "Okay, uh you two take Mr. Van Hoodigem, go grab some shovels and start shoveling bark mulch." And I was like, okay. I mean, like, I'd done this before. I knew what I
Yeah.
was doing, but I was not expecting to do it today. So um so I went down with them, and we walked down to the sheds where they kept all of the shovels. And I was wearing like my really nice clothes because I wanted to make a good first impression. We were all told to wear nice clothes, and now I was doing like work that I should not have been. Should not have had my nice clothes in. So I was like, I'm whatever. I'll just get these clothes dirty and
Just bite the bullet. Yeah.
bite the bullet now. It's fine. And so we walked down the hill, going to get our shovels, and they both asked me again like 2 or 3 more times if I was married and whatnot. And I said no. I was like, "Are you married? No. Are you married? No." Because I mean, me being 20 was when I was there. They would have been married by then probably, or just about to be married by then. So it was very uh, unique that I wasn't. And so we walked down the hill. We went to go get the shovels, and they were like, "First, we need to make a pit stop in this building. I have to grab a wheelbarrow." And so I'm like, "Okay, great. Let's grab a wheelbarrow." We walk in. I open the gate, and then I freeze cold in my tracks as like 12 turkeys just turn their heads and stare at me. And I'm like mortified. I've had a bad past with turkeys. Like I've in Mexico, I came across a rabid turkey, and ever since then I've been like unnerved by them. And so
Maybe that's
with
why
12
lunch that day
turkeys,
was so delicious, was because you have that vendetta against turkeys, right? So
I
they're
guess
much
I
more
guess so.
succulent when you hate them. Who knows?
Yeah,
Anyway.
and I guess they had sensed that I had turkey in the morning because they all like stared a death stare at me, and I was like, "Okay, you go get the wheelbarrow. I'll stay out here." So he goes gets the wheelbarrow. All the turkeys like stare at me as I walk away, and I'm like, "I do not like this place."
Yeah.
So he grabs the wheelbarrow. He goes back up to the school, and then I continue on with the other kid to go grab the shovels, and we walk in to this other room, this other big warehouse, and I walk in and I see the shovels to my right, and I grab a shovel, and he keeps going in. So I grab a shovel, and I turn around, and I just see like 30 or 40 bags full to the brim of potatoes, and they're like probably the size of most bedrooms, at like wide and tall. These bags are huge because this Hutterite colony had they distributed like potatoes for most of the restaurants in Lethbridge. So these were huge bags of potatoes, probably the most potatoes I'd ever seen in my entire life in one room. it was insane. So like again, I was there standing in awe. And so we left, and I'm like, this is the craziest place because I'm from the city. I don't usually do this stuff. I went to my grandma's farm like a couple of times, but it was barely a farm. This is like outlandish for me. So I continue on, and we start to get to work. I start shoveling bark mulch. We're shoveling bark mulch. We're having a good time. The other kids are hammering stuff into the ground. Uh, the girls are all painting the deck. Everybody's given their jobs. And so we get to work. We're shoveling. One of the kids laughs as he chucks a shovel full of bark mulch down my back. And then the teacher stops everybody and he's like, okay, this is great. Now, next thing, we need to start reseeding the grass. And I'm like, what do you mean reseeding the grass? Where are we? What do you mean by that? And my answer was in another big like crashing sound when I just heard. I look behind me and my heart stops again because I see this 12-year-old kid just driving this industrial sized fork loader with a bunch of grass he had dug up from the field, like on the other side of the hill. And he was just like tossing it down, and everybody was like grabbing pieces and like jamming it into the ground to like fill up all of this mud and to like put a like line of grass around the side of the building. And I was like, what's happening? And I'm in like my blazer and I'm pulling it off, and I'm like, I'm gonna get so muddy. And we're just like grabbing pieces, more and more pieces, as this 12-year-old drives back to the hill, digs up more grass and brings it back to us. And then we do that for another 30 minutes, and I'm like, I can't be phased by this. I have to keep working, or else I'm just gonna like, I don't know, go insane. So I start seeding grass, and then they bring out the hose to wet it down, and the kids are spraying the hose everywhere, having a bucket of laughs. I'm getting sprayed in the ankles. I'm like squashing the grass down underneath my feet. It's like insanely weird. And eventually we finish. We do a good enough job that the teacher's like, okay, now it's time. We can all party now. It's all right. Everybody go home, grab candy from your parents, party the night away. And then I was finally actually allowed to spend time with my teacher and actually learn what I was going to be teaching at like the last 10-15 minutes of the school day. And then we drove back home. It was honestly the weirdest experience I've ever had, but also one of the most hilarious stories I've ever experienced.
Yeah,
So,
I'm really glad they kept you busy and that you were able to contribute a little bit of your learned skills from your grandmother's farm, you know? Like some of those, like putting the mud
yeah.
down, moving the grass around. More so, it's cool that you were able to just rip off the blazer and be like, I'm doing it. Screw it. It's time. I'm biting
Yeah.
it. I'm doing it. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you didn't keep the cat, obviously, because you said you're allergic.
No, that was one of like 200 farm cats that they had that they
Fair.
all needed to be there. So,
Yeah, you don't want to displace a farm cat, really. Also,
No.
farm cats can be
No.
quite mean. That's what I've heard. I've heard like
Yes.
you don't want to mess with them. They're just they're grumpy, but they're happy with what they're doing. You know, chasing mice and rolling around in big piles of cow poo.
yes, huge
Apparently.
piles.
That's great. Yeah, like I said, I really do appreciate it. And this has been Expose Yourself. This has been Paul exposing himself. Well, not really
Thank you
exposing
very much.
yourself. I guess you kind of exposed other people, but
I did, yes.
yeah. Well, hopefully we can call one of them up and see their side of the story too.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, Paul. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Expose Yourself, a storytelling podcast by Thunder Lizard Collective. I've been your host, Christian. If you like what you heard, be sure to follow us on social media. We are Thunder Lizard Collective on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and we are Thunder Lizard OG on Twitter. We also have a Patreon page, and you can find that by going to patreon.com/thunderlizard. In addition to those things, you can follow us on Spotify, give us 5 stars on iTunes, or do the equivalent on any other streaming platform. We have 2 other shows as well. We have Thunder and Dragons, our D&D podcast, as well as our movie podcast, the ThunderCast. Once again, thank you for listening to this episode of Expose Yourself, and we'll see you again soon.